It may seem like business as usual for now, but a global food crisis is brewing. War has disrupted exports from two major grain-producing nations, Ukraine and Russia, propelling food prices to all-time highs in March. Prices were already inflated because of pandemic supply disruptions and extreme weather events.
So the last biggest food price crisis we experienced was in 2007 and 8. So to give you a sense of the magnitude, it was the Food and Agriculture Organization's food price index value in 2007-8 was 117. And in March 2022, the food price index of Food and Agriculture Organization reached to 159.
It's estimated that more than 20 countries have imposed restrictions on food exports this year to safeguard local supplies and bring prices down.
It makes sense for an individual government because you want to protect the poor in your society, because when food prices and energy prices go up, it's a huge chunk of their consumption basket that gets spent on food and energy.
Here in Asia, Indonesia banned most exports of palm oil for 3 weeks. India put the brakes on wheat and sugar exports. Malaysia's ban on chicken exports also kicked in, sending suppliers of Singapore's most consumed meat scrambling to make contingency plans.
We have to source for alternative sources. We source it from Australia, we source it from Thailand. I mean, even we work together with other chicken farmers to make sure that we have an adequate supply. And if for chilled chicken is not available, of course, we have to swap towards frozen chicken.
And the remaining 2/3 of our chicken supply actually in frozen and chilled form. And this actually comes from about 20 countries, for example, from Brazil, USA, as well as Thailand. And these supplies are not impacted. We are increasingly working with the industry to see how we can actually increase imports of these frozen chicken from other sources.
Experts are hesitant to pinpoint what commodity could be hit next, but they agree that consumers will have to brace for more expensive food. And the pain is unlikely to be short-lived.
We have the Russia-Ukraine war, which does not look like it's going to end quickly. And Russia and Ukraine are huge global exporters of wheat, corn, barley, but also fertilizers as well. Secondly, we have global warming. We're having more and more extreme weather events, whether it's droughts or floods. And when food prices rise, we start to see more trade protectionism around food, which might make sense for an individual country looking at the situation for themselves. But when many countries do that, it restricts the supply of food even more and causes food prices to go even higher. So governments really do need to intervene, but protectionism is not the right way.
A better and more sustainable way to tackle the food crisis may be to look at changing domestic policies.
They can provide subsidies, food subsidies or energy subsidies that lower the costs of food for households. They can lower the taxes, say excise taxes on certain items that also helps lower the prices. Or they could even enforce price ceilings, which really puts the cost then on the food manufacturers or energy suppliers.
There are other countries like Australia, for example, which is expecting a bumper crop of wheat this year. And they also signal that they are going to increase their export. So some countries are also using this as an opportunity to expand their market share.
The food crisis has also highlighted a lack of diversity in the global food supply chain. In Singapore, which relies on imports for 90% of our food needs, authorities say diversifying food sources is a key strategy. Imports currently come from more than 170 countries and regions.
Diversification from sources actually allows us to tap on alternative sources when any disruption occurs. So, for example, for vegetables, we actually import more than 300 vegetable items from over 50 countries and regions. And last year, when Malaysia was hit with floods, and that actually disrupted some of our vegetable supply, our importers were actually able to quickly change and tap on alternative sources coming from Indonesia, Vietnam, and China.
In the longer term, work is underway to fulfill the ambition of having 30% of Singapore's nutritional needs sustainably produced by 2030. This includes expanding sustainable fish farming and funding research and development in urban food solutions. And consumers have a part to play too.
So when chicken becomes more expensive and we don't have enough supply of chicken, we can switch to plant-based protein, for example, lentil and tofu. And also for carbohydrate, we can add more diverse source of carbohydrate to our diet instead of relying too much on rice and wheat. So then that makes our diet more diverse and we are not so vulnerable of rising food prices or lack of availability of a particular type of food.